All right, it's time for our live Locked On post-game show. Tom Callahan here with you as we're going to take a look back at the LA Kings Utah Hockey Club game. We're back from the Four Nations face-off. Sean Durzi's return on tap tonight and Utah's playoff math. Let's get it going right now.
You are Locked On Utah Hockey Club, your daily podcast on the Utah Hockey Club, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey everybody, Tom Callahan here with you. Thanks for joining me. I'm a longtime veteran NHL voice, love calling the game of hockey, love talking about the game of hockey, and it's led me here to you, talking about the Utah Hockey Club. Robin's got the night off out there playing some hockey, and, can't blame her for that. So, Robin, hope you had a good game. We're going to talk about the game with the Utah Hockey Club and the LA Kings here tonight. They're back after the Four Nations face-off. Sean Durzi is back. He has also returned, and that's a huge plus for Utah. We're going to talk about how he did, his ice time, and all that. We'll take a look back. We like to get inside the numbers and see how things went for Utah here tonight. And, of course, we're going to take a look at Utah's playoff math here. And it's not good. It's not bad for the Utah Hockey Club. It is what it is. I think it's a good phrase to use for now. As now, after tonight's 5-3 loss to the LA Kings, we are now down to 25 games remaining for the Utah Hockey Club. So first of all, let's go ahead. And by the way, when we're done, I'm going to wait till towards the end of the show and see if we get a final out of the Vancouver-Vegas game, which also has some direct implications on what's going on here. Every game matters now. Every game matters so much. It's not just 2 points for you. It's a chance to deny your opponent perhaps 2 points as well. That's why tonight's game against the Kings wasn't just 2 points for Utah to make up, but also coming into tonight with the standings the way they were, the Kings, third place in the Pacific with 65 points. They now have 67. Utah still at 57. Well, guess what? It's 63 points for Vancouver. And if the Kings win and the Canucks manage to win, Vegas is up top, tied with Edmonton, 72 points atop the standings right now. So once you refresh this and you see that as of now, the standings have changed with LA putting that one in the win column. And again, Vancouver's at 63. So Utah Hockey Club at 57. And it was that 6-point gap to Vancouver that is the big focus right now. But there's nothing saying that Vancouver and LA can't flip-flop and that LA might not be the team you need to catch. And so playing LA is important, not only to deny the Kings those 2 points, it also matters if the tiebreak happens to go to head-to-head matchup. That could make a difference. All kinds of things that could happen and reasons why you just need to beat the teams that you're facing on any given night. And so coming out now with this loss here this evening to LA, that's a tough one as we're at the end of February here. And now right back at it again on a Sunday matinee effort, 6 o'clock Mountain Time. Speaking of the Canucks, right back at it against Vancouver. And then you've got Chicago on Tuesday at 7, Minnesota on Tuesday at 7. Those are home games. So playing on the road tonight in LA, a 5-3 loss, a tough one. Let's go back and look through the scoring in this one. Utah actually got it off on the right skate. They scored first. And what a night for Barrett Hayton. Stick taps to Barrett Hayton with the hat trick, goals 13, 14, and 15 tonight. I don't think I'm spoiling anything for you if you're tuning in immediately to the post-game show here and you're jumping on live. By the way, thank you. Also, want to let you know, I'm going to try to keep an eye on the comments. So if you do have something to say, let me know, because your comments to this live post-game show will show up. Sometimes they're a little delayed, but if you have questions, if you have thoughts, I'm happy to get to those as well. So I do ask you if you have something you want to say, please do throw it in the comments in the chat there, and it'll pop up from the YouTube side. So that's the most interactive we're going to be able to be here. So, all right. So Hayton gets it going. Power play goal. One of the things that I said was important, I had 3 keys coming out of this break for the Utah Hockey Club. And first and foremost was special teams. When the power play is going well, they win games. And when the penalty kill is taking care of business, they win games. Now, tonight, they scored twice on the power play. Check. Nice job. But they do give up a power play goal to LA. So Not exactly what I wanted to see, but again, I mean, you go up 1-0, 7:54, Hayton from Schmaltz and Gunther. Here's one of the okay, before I get to the flip side of this coin. First of all, I want to talk about Hayton. His performance tonight, great net front presence, was buzzing around over there, and I'm a big fan of, look, sometimes you just got to knock it in with your shovel or your lunch pail or whatever. You put your hard hat on, you go to work, you get to the front of the net, that you score the greasy goals. And those are the hard goals to score. Those are the hard areas to play in. Not everybody's willing to do that. But Barrett Hayton's willing to do it, and he got rewarded 3 times tonight. And I like the evolution of Hayton's game. I think if he's going to have a lot more of that in him, he could turn into a player that we're talking about in the terms down the road of a guy who turned into like a Tim Kerr, a Rick Vive, a Dave Anderchuk. And I know those are all players from like the 80s and 90s that you may not recognize the names of, but they were all stand in front of the net, take a pounding, put the puck in the net. Very successful NHLers because they were willing to pay the price. And there is a physical price to be paid. Hayton scores that goal, hanging around the net. Perfect place for him and all of his goals. Same theme. It's not like he wired one from the point, scored off a rush in the wing. Everything was scored from around the goal crease by Barrett Hayton tonight. All 3 of his goals. So that's great. I love seeing that. What I don't love seeing is Utah just has this propensity to give up the lead right after they get it. The first period was the most egregious example of this. 7:54 Utah scores, 8:22 Drew Doughty scores. 28 seconds. Right away, it's even up at 1. So I hate that. I hate shifts after goals for Utah this year. I think it's been a soft spot. I think it is a place where they need to do so much better. Doughty from Fiala and Edmondson, and now it's 1-1. That's the way the period would end. We come back out in the second period, 5:50. Another power play goal. Hayton again. This time, Schmaltz and Keller are the assists on the goal. By the way, how about Clayton Keller up to 41 apples this year? Love that. So great. Another power play goal. I love it. But then they take a penalty not that long after. And this was kind of a tough one. The Doughty call, honestly, the slashing call that they scored on Hayton's second power play goal, I actually wouldn't have called that. I thought that was a ticky-tack call. I thought he defended the play well with Kerfoot breaking in. I actually wondered if they were going to call that, if they're going to give a penalty shot. I think the reason why they did call it is because Doughty got a stick parallel. And a lot of times with stick infractions, if you get your stick parallel, you get a hook or something like that, or an interference, or in this case, a slash. That's why. If you get your stick, and if your hand is parallel, you're going to get called for holding. So that's why that happens. They call it, whatever. Utah capitalizes. But the pendulum is going to swing back the other way. That's human nature. And it does almost immediately. Ian Cole, interference. Well, Fiala scores while he's in the box. So number 22 for number 22, a power play goal. Kopitar and Doughty the assist. So Drew Doughty's got himself a 2-point night. But again, the inability to hold that lead. That's a tough one. And then 16-10 of the second period, the Kings take the lead for good. LaFerriere scores from Doughty, 3-point night now, and Edmondson. And that's the way the period ended. It was 3-2. Now, it got a little desperate in the third for Utah, which I want to see. I want to see them come out and really try to push as much as they can. It was inconsistent, right? We talk about Utah. They've been inconsistent this year. It was inconsistent tonight. But they do manage to get a goal. And again, it's Hayton for his 15th. This time, Carconi and Durzi. Welcome back, Sean Durzi. At the 11-minute mark. Plenty of time. And Utah did put on a push. They pull the goaltender late. They just can't figure out a way to make it happen. They do give up an empty netter. 18:30, Anderson from Deneau. And that leads to the 5-3 final. So really 4-3 game with an empty netter. Tough one for Utah Hockey Club. But again, if you're a playoff team, if you're going to put yourself in the playoffs, that's one of the ways you get into it. I was talking earlier about my to-do list for them to be a playoff team, to get into this race here down the stretch. So I talked about special teams. Get rid of the inconsistencies. And still, we saw that there were some inconsistencies out there. There were times they looked really good. And especially for a team coming off the break, especially for a team with its first real look at its defense this year. And I want to talk about the D pair when I talk about Durzi. But again, inconsistent. And the other thing is Connor Ingram, again, real tough for a goalie coming off a 2-week break to get back out there. But I mean, both goalies had the same circumstances. And I just thought that Ingram made some good saves. But and even look on the Kings end of things too. I mean, Darcy Kemper had some pucks leak through him. He had some tough ones. And a couple of times Utah's D did help out. There were posts in the game going each way. But, if Ingram's a little sharper, do they maybe get to overtime? Maybe, but no guarantee. So I can't be too hard on Connor Ingram, but just needing to get rid of those inconsistencies and take care of the puck in the offensive zone. And there were times, again, they weren't winning those battles. They weren't maintaining the zone time. They weren't really working the puck around. They were having trouble getting it from the perimeter of the zone into the interior for those high percentage scoring chances. And I'd really like to see them do a better job of that. So 5-3, the final shots by period. Utah, 6 in the first, 9 in the second, 12 in the third for 27. And for the Kings, it was 8, 11, and 7 for 26. So pretty even, 27-26. Don't mind that, really. That's not the worst thing. And again, the power plays, I appreciate that Utah is able to score twice with the power play. I like that for them, that they score on both power plays that they were awarded. So 2 for 2 is great in my book. Penalty kill, though, 1 for 2. Certainly you'd like to see them clean that up a little bit. So that's a look at the numbers from the game. And Kevin saying, if Utah doesn't win tomorrow, they should be a seller at the deadline. Just wonder how much of a seller they will be. And Kevin, I think whether they win or lose tomorrow, they're going to be an opportunistic seller. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on in the show. And thank you for joining us, by the way. And again, if you want your question or your thought, chime in with Kevin over on the YouTube side. The chat does show up here on my streaming side of things. Merck's asking about Ingram. Is he a liability? We can talk about that as well. Right now, I actually do need to get myself into a break. We're going to do a real quick one. And when we come back, I'm going to talk about Sean Durzi's return. We're going to break down his ice time. And I want to talk about the D pair because this harkens back to what we talked about in the preseason. And I think actually in a very good way, this is going to be something good for us to look at here. So let's go ahead and do that. Stick around. All right. And thanks for being here, everybody. Tonight's show is brought to you in part by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. And there's no better place to get it on than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love FanDuel's live betting feature because I flip around games a lot. I'm very guilty of that with hockey. And so I'll jump in, kind of test the water, I guess, and see where things are at in a game in the third period. If it's tight, if it's tense, kind of feel the flow of the game. And you're able to pick something up late, especially with FanDuel. I never feel like I missed my chance to get something in that I feel good about. So the app's easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly, which doesn't hurt my feelings at all. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Okay, Tom Callahan back here with you, and thanks everybody for joining me. I appreciate you being here. And again, talking about the comments here, going to get to as many of these as I can for you and talk about what's going on. But defensively, Sean Durzi's back. Okay, hey, 2 thumbs up for Sean Durzi being back. I'm excited. I hope you are too. Looked pretty good, I thought, for a guy who's missed 50-some games. Isn't it wild? We had so much hope coming into this season when we talked about a loaded blue line. And remember, this is before they went out and got Bortuzzo, who's actually still injured. He's out right now, but getting closer according to Andre Tourney, so that's good. But this is before Bortuzzo, before Ole Mata, and before all the injuries happened. The Durzi injury being probably the biggest one, but Marino was out for a significant amount of time. It really looked like it was going to be a really good top 3, top 4. Ian Cole was an exciting acquisition. I really liked him coming in. And then you had some younger players vying for those 5, 6 roles, your Valley Mackeys, your Kessel Rings. So now you go through all these injuries. Well, tonight is the first time we've had a chance to look at what I thought we might have seen out of the defensive pairs. By the way, they also grabbed an Ole Mata. They added him. They added Bortuzzo. They added Nick DeSimone, who's, I think, been impressive in his little stint here with the team so far. So I like that. But they have 9 defensemen. Look, not everybody's staying. And Kevin, this is going to work into your point. They are going to be a seller at the deadline, an opportunistic seller, because they're not keeping these 9 defensemen. And there's some expiring contracts. I'm going to talk about the contracts, but let's take a look at Durzi's game first. So number 50 comes back, gets an assist, 21:37 of ice time. Not the most ice time. That was the real quick third most on the team. Sergachev's 23:27 led the way, and then Mata, who's a horse, 22 and a half minutes. He looked great, by the way, for Finland. Ole Mata, I thought, had a real good 4 nations. I know Finland didn't make as much of a dent, and quite frankly, they had a really banged up blue line. They had a lot of injuries of their own to contend with, but I thought he looked real good at 4 nations. So he's playing some really good hockey right now. So Durzi is third on ice time, 21:37, 28 shifts. And all of that was even strength. So not going to rush him into special teams time. Totally understandable. First game back. 4 shots, 1 attempt blocked, 1 missed shot, 2 giveaways, 1 takeaway, and 2 blocks for Durzi. John Marino had a team high 5 blocks in the game. Not a lot of hits in this one. 20 hits for Utah, 24 for LA. Nobody on Utah had more than 3. McBain had 3. Liam O'Brien had 3. And Lawson Krause had 3. And those are the guys you need leading the hits. I would have liked to have seen them be a little more physical, I think. But again, for Durzi, a good first effort coming through. I like that he had a couple of blocks in there. It shows he's not afraid of getting in front of the puck. He feels comfortable. I think that's a big thing that I was looking for. Is Sean Durzi going into contact? Is Sean Durzi, putting his body on the line? Is he, playing aggressive? Is he hanging back? How's he treating it? And I liked what I saw. I thought it was good. So no complaints for the way Durzi came through. Pretty happy about that. Now, how does it feed in, and how did the D pairs look tonight? Well, early on, Robin and I had talked about this, and I think I kind of talked Robin into this one, actually, so maybe that's on me. But I never saw Sergachev and Durzi really spending a lot of time playing together because it's too much of a good thing on one D pair. So tonight, it was good to see that they were not on the same D pair. They had them split, which I was very happy to see that. It was Marino and Sergachev, and then Durzi and Mata. Mata is super defensively responsible. That's fantastic to me. And that also puts Ian Cole, who's a mid-30s veteran, down into reasonable minutes for him. And let me go check what Cole had here tonight. Ian Cole, 15:09. Perfect. I love Ian Cole. I love him as a veteran defenseman. I know he took a penalty tonight. But in that role, in that 15-minute role, awesome. I love him there. I think that's perfect and exactly where they need him if they're going to keep him. We'll talk about that, although he was -2 tonight, along with Kesselring. Those guys are on the ice for a bit. And that third goal, I don't know what was going on. Cole was out in front, and all of a sudden you had cutting in behind the net. Carconi was going across the goal crease for some reason, and Kesselring looked like he was lost. There was just a lot of blown coverage on that third goal. I didn't like that one at all. So I'm looking at it, though, from the standpoint of this, talking about the trade deadline and the cautious seller, the opportunistic seller. Here's why. You have 3 longish term contracts on defense. You have Sergachev and Durzi wrapped up until 27-28. So 3 years after this. 8.5 for Sergachev, $6 million for Durzi. You can manage that. Those are reasonable hits. John Marino, 2 years after this at $4.4 million. reasonable. He's only 27 too, and Durzi's 26, Sergachev's 26. You've got a nice core locked up here, and it's growing and getting better. Then you have Vejmelka and Kesselring for one more year after this. Vejmelka's $2 million, Kesselring 1.4. Here are your expiring contracts, and remember, there's 9D. You have D. Simone 775, which is a very team-friendly number if anybody wants to take a roll on that. But the two guys I think who will be in discussion the most, not that Utah's going to give them up, but if the offer is right, they will, because they're expiring contracts and they're veteran guys. Ian Cole is probably number one on my list if I'm another NHL GM looking for a veteran defenseman at the deadline here if I need a left shot. 3.1 million. You're not taking the full hit for that, and Utah does have some cap space to play with. If they need to eat a little salary in order to get a better return, they can. And then $3 million for Ole Mata. So he's expiring. And then Bortuzzo, who's on IR right now, 775 as well. He's a right shot veteran defenseman. That's not a bad contract either if you're looking to add depth. And teams at this time of the year that are looking to add depth, that's kind of what they're looking to add. They're not looking, honestly, no one's looking for Clayton Keller if you think you have a shot at the Stanley Cup. Now, you don't mind adding Keller, and I'm not saying Keller's going anywhere, but generally, if you're a team top 10, that's not the guy you need. You need, if you're up front, maybe a Lawson Krause, an Alex Kerfoot, maybe a Barrett Hayton. And Hayton's young. I don't see him going anywhere. But how about Nick Bukestad? Bukestad's always a popular player this time of year for a reason. He's physical. He hits. He goes to the net. He makes things happen. And he is a guy who you slot him in on the third line, he's fine. Fourth line, he's fine. And you want solid. You want responsible. You want smart. You want veteran. Those are the guys that are going to get it done. So that's why I think Utah is absolutely going to be active at the deadline, whether they win against Vancouver or not. They're absolutely going to be active. They have too many defensemen. Now, the other thing is in goal. What are you going to do? Is Ingram a liability? Not when he's playing well. He's had a rough season between the injuries and, of course, his bereavement leave. And we know he's fought some issues before, and you really want to give the player the benefit of the doubt to do as well as he can. You have him for another year under contract, $1.95 million. Reasonable for a starting goaltender, reasonable for a backup goaltender. Vejmelka, $2.725 million. This is his last year. Veg, number one, I think has been the better goaltender by far, and I don't think there's much of a question about that. His numbers bear that out. Stauber has shown he's ready. But the question is, with Veggie, if he is not willing to sit at the table with you now and discuss an extension, I don't think you can roll the dice on losing him for nothing. If he has it in his head that he wants to be a starter and test free agency and go somewhere else, and there are teams that will pay, I would not want to lose the opportunity to gain something for him with his numbers. His one loss isn't great, but his save percentage is good. Goals against is good. He's a guy that can have some real value on the open market. A team like Edmonton, that still needs a goalie, in my opinion, would kill to have him. And I think that they would be willing to part with some future appreciating assets. Nothing currently. Look, we're not bringing back Connor McDavid, right? Okay, let's be real about this. But you could get a good haul of picks and prospects out of a team like Edmonton that needs a goaltender like Veg. And there are going to be some other teams too that, I mean, injuries happen. You never know down the stretch here. The trade deadline's a couple weeks away. But you have to make a decision if you're Utah. I think you need to know by the trade deadline who your goalie is for next year. Veg, do you want to stay? Do you want to go? That's an important question. If he says, I'm going, well, there's your answer. If he says, I'm interested in talking about staying, okay. Now we got to see, is there any interest in Ingram? Do we move him? How do we proceed with this? Stauber can come in next year and be number 2. I don't think he's quite a 1B. I think he's a 2, but he'll get there. But Veggie's 28, Ingram's 27. They're just getting to their prime. So whichever one you do end up with, I think you're okay. Of course, it's a little more of a roll of the dice with Ingram based on what we've seen this year, last year, the things he's gone through, his injury status. So I don't want to call him a liability, but I do think he merits more caution. And I think when you have the 1A, 1B you have now, Veggie and Ingram, it's not something that burns you. But I think if next year is Ingram and Stauber, and this happens again where he misses extended time and where you're running into trouble, now you need a goalie. Or Stauber's got to step up and develop real fast, which could happen. But that's what I'm worried about. Those are one of the things I think about. So those are my thoughts when it comes to the trade deadline. Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Merc, they are talking to Veg. They want to know, and they want to figure out if they can get to a number. Just because a guy says he wants to stay doesn't mean they're going to agree either. That's another thing that they have to figure out is, okay, we're going to talk to you. You want to stay? Great. What's your number? Here's our number. Here's your number, right? And if they're like, you got to crunch them down towards the middle. You got to find a way to separate them. What about your term? One's here, one's here. Well, how do you get those to meet in the middle, right? If Edge is like, I want a 5-6 year term. Okay. If you're willing to go for term, are you willing to come back off money a little bit? So it all goes around. And that's kind of how they're going to try to do that dance and figure out how they're going to keep those guys. Okay, one more break. I want to talk about the playoff math here, and keep throwing the comments in. I love it. I appreciate it. Thank you for being here, part of the live post-game show. And we'll take one more quick break when we come back. Again, the playoff math, this is important. This is really going to break down what Utah needs if they're going to be a playoff team this year. So stick around. All right, and tonight's show is brought to you in part by Select Quote. In sports, having a winning strategy is everything. It's how the best teams make it to the Super Bowl, the World Series, the Olympics, and the same goes for life. Having a strategy like life insurance from Select Quote can protect your financial legacy and keep your family's future secure. Select Quote makes it easy to find the perfect life insurance policy. As one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, they've helped over 2 million customers find $700 billion, with a B, billion, in coverage since 1985. What sets Select Quote apart is their personal touch. Unlike other brokers that offer one-size-fits-all policies, their licensed agents tailor coverage to fit your unique needs. If you're a member in good health, you might even qualify for same-day coverage of up to $5 million with no medical exam required. And it's more affordable than you'd think. You can get up to $1 million in coverage for as little as $20 a month. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/LockedOnNHL. Go to selectquote.com/LockedOnNHL today to get started. That's selectquote.com/LockedOnNHL. Select Quote. They shop, you save. All right, doing this post-game show here. Again, it's a 5-3 loss for the Utah Hockey Club to the LA Kings. Car wash, I know you're disappointed with the result of the game. I am too. That was a tough one tonight. I want to go through the out-of-town scoreboard here and update everything for you. As a busy night tonight, 14 games in the NHL as they get right back to it. And you know what? It was an oddball night. Quite frankly, the only game still going on, and this concerns Utah, is so far good news. Halfway through the third period, Golden Knights are up 2-1 on the Canucks. That is a favorable result. We want Vancouver to lose. And then we're going to have to face them tomorrow for a Sunday game at home. So looking forward to that. Both teams got to travel too. So even though it's back-to-back, they're both traveling. All right, Sabres 8-2 over the Rangers tonight. In overtime, Wild 4-3 over the Red Wings. Flyers 6-3 over the Oilers. 8-3 Capitals over the Penguins. And by the way, Ovi did not score in that game somehow. Kraken beat the Panthers 2-1. Stars 4, Devils 2. So they gained some ground. Preds beat the Avalanche 2-1. That's a bit of a surprise result there. How about the Ducks in OT 3-2 over the Boston Bruins? Leafs double up the Hurricanes 6-3, although they did try to hand it back to them late. Canadians 5-2 over the Senators, 5-1 Blue Jackets over the Blackhawks. Seth Jones has quietly asked for a trade out, according to some folks that I've talked to. Wants to get out of the Blackhawks to a contender, possibly. So he could be on the move. Jets 4-3 over the Blues in a shootout. important because it doesn't go in the row column for the Jets, but they still pick up the 2 points. Unfortunately, St. Louis gets 1, which we don't like to see that for Utah Hockey Club. So that's the out-of-town scoreboard. And what it breaks down to with the playoff math is the expected points. So if you follow everybody's math out based on their current win percentage. So here, let me use a big word. We're going to extrapolate out their point totals. In order for Utah to make up that 6-point gap from them to Vancouver with the remaining now 25 games, Utah needs to average 1.4 or more points per game. So what does that mean in real world terms? It means you need, out of every 10 games, you need 14 points. So with 25 games left, you need 28 and then another, let's say 8. We'll just do round numbers. So 28 and 8 is 36. 36 points is what you're looking at for Utah Hockey Club. That gets you to, let's see, 36 would be 83 points. That could be enough to get you in for a Western Conference wildcard spot. It means basically winning 2 out of every 3, 3 out of 5, trying to really start to pick it up. You need a streak in here. And Utah hasn't done that this year. They have not had a streak. That's what they need. Yes, Scott, by the way, Jays had. I'm a big Blue Jays fan. Huge baseball fan, first of all. But yeah, big Jays fan. So thanks for pointing that one out. You know what? It's really one of those things where for Utah, if they could get a 3-4-5 game win streak going, that would really help their playoff math. It would take some of the pressure off them. It would put pressure on the teams in front of them. And the other thing too, if you look at the streaks and the numbers right now, everybody's pretty average. So if you find a way to go 7-3, the only team, and again, we're all coming off of Four Nations break here, but Vancouver is 6-3-1 in the last 10. That's just okay. The Kings are 4-4-2. That's just okay. Calgary 4-5-1. Anaheim actually is 7-3 in the last 10. So, and they won again tonight over Boston. But even the St. Louis Blues 3-5-2 heading into tonight in their last 10. Not great numbers, you know. And honestly, Utah, Anaheim, and St. Louis in the rearview mirror now, only by a point. Utah also has to worry about getting jumped by them. Anaheim's got a game in hand. Utah has a game in hand over St. Louis. So those are all the questions you have to ask yourself when it comes down to how is this all going to play out. It's real tough to leapfrog teams this time of year. Fortunately for Utah, they're still in a place where they only need to leapfrog 2. And that right now is Calgary and Vancouver. Calgary's 3 points ahead at 60. Vancouver 63, pending the outcome of tonight's game. So that's the playoff math. 1.4 points per game and a bit of a streak. That's really what we need to see. So hopefully they can get it going. And we'll see how that's all going to pan out for them. But honestly, this is a point where Utah needs to heat up. And coming up, again, whether they get hot or not, they could win every game between now and the trade deadline. And they'd still make moves at the trade deadline. Now, do they think they're suddenly a cup winner? I don't know if we're going to go that far. But they have to make moves based on the economic reality of where they are, the contracts they have, and what they can get in return. Because remember, at the beginning of the year, I told you guys, I expected them to be in the playoff cusp this year. That was improvement for me based over where they were last year. And then next year to get into the wild card. And then year 3 is where they're going to be a contender. That is continued progress of this rebuild. So no, they're not done. They're not 100% set up front. They're not 100% set on the blue line, and they're certainly not 100% set in goal just by the nature of the expiring contract of Vejmelka and a conversation that needs to be had. So there's a lot of moving parts right now, and that's why they pay Bill Armstrong the big bucks. He wants a team that's going to play physical. He wants a team that's going to play hard. They don't quite fill that yet. They're not that team. That's the mold he wants to build in. That is the mold he's drafting. That is the player he is trying to acquire. And that is his mindset, but they're not quite there yet. So that's really where we are at this point. And yes, Scott, they are knocking on that wild card door. They are. They're there. They're where I figured they would be, or at least I hope they would be. If they didn't have a bad, disappointing season, I think this is a season that's, again, a step forward. I'm fine with where they are. I really would love to see them make the push this year, whether they get in or not, and just be smart at the deadline. So Robin and I are going to be talking a lot about this. Down the stretch, we're going to be anticipating a lot of trades. I think the market's going to pick up again now on the other side of Four Nations. GMs are not waiting anymore. It used to be everything went down on trade deadline day, and then it moved back a couple days. We've already seen a couple of big moves. You'll probably see a few more here once we get through this weekend. So keep it pointed, no matter where you find us on social media, because if anything happens, if Utah makes a move, we're going to tell you about it, and other moves that may impact us as well. So, and also I know everybody talking about the potential for a Yeti-looking logo still. If they stick with Utah Hockey Club, you might get one. You never know. Also, Mammoth and Outlaws. And the fan vote, Joe was saying he knew that Mammoth was in the lead, but that was before they added Outlaws. I know there's a lot of favor curried towards Outlaws. Wasatch, I don't know what happened with that. That was just a weird thing. So to my way of thinking, though, the fact that Outlaws didn't make the original Final Three and then it got re-added to the Final Three, I just don't, I don't know if it's in their plans. You know, I don't know if it is. Fan favorite or not, unless it wins by an overwhelming margin. And I don't know that they're going to tell you what the figures say, but I don't know. I think it's going to be Mammoth or Utah Hockey Club. So, all right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for the show. I appreciate all of you being a part of the live post-game show here. If you like the post-game shows, the live post-game shows, let me know. Send me a comment in the chat. Don't forget to give us a subscribe if you're here and you're new. Welcome. If you're a returner and everydayer, we thank you for being here. And don't forget also to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're available everywhere. iHeart, Odyssey, Apple Podcasts, Google, wherever you find podcasts, we will be there. So thank you very much, everybody, for being a part of this. Robin and I will be back coming up with more shows this week. And my thanks to you. And this has been the post-game show. One more time, your final tonight. Disappointing, but, you know, I saw some good things coming out of it. 5-3 loss to the Kings tonight. And hopefully they're able to kind of get things going for themselves here in the next little while. So, all right, we'll talk to you next time. Tom Callahan saying good night for the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast.